Hi, my name is Dr. Todd, and I'm here to tell you why advice doesn't work. Today, we're going to talk about the idea of parents giving their children advice or what they think is best for them. There's just one problem: it does not work. When you're giving your children advice, what you're really trying to do is influence them. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to influence your children. In fact, you should want to influence your children. But advice often backfires and rarely, if ever, results in real influence. Instead of advice, let me share with you how you can really influence your children and give you the secret backdoor skills for doing this. I will show you how easy it can be with these simple tips I've learned from years of experience, both as a psychologist, but also as a parent. Before I share these tips, I'd love for you to subscribe to this channel where you can learn more about how to have influence with your kids. I want to tell you about a woman that I saw in therapy many years ago. She came to me because of her son. So she was not there to see me, she was there for me to see her son. And he had been in all kinds of trouble. He was failing school, he was getting in trouble with the police, he was using drugs. So they came into my office and I knew pretty much right away that he was not gonna stick around with me. In fact, he told me the second visit he was never coming back. But she kept coming back. In fact, we started talking about maybe how I could help her parent him, give her some help with that. As I got to know her, she started telling me more and more about stories from her own personal life. Now, I will tell you that up to that point in my career as a psychologist, I had never met anybody who had been through so much trauma. She had been abused in every way you can imagine, from the moment she was born until she was an adult, by many different people. And it was some of the worst abuse that I had ever heard of. And so as this woman is sitting there in the office with me, you can imagine that she does not trust people. And she is hesitantly telling me about her life. And it's very hard for her to share the pain that she had gone through. I knew right away that I had to take it slow with her, because she didn't trust me, she didn't trust anybody. And so my whole goal with her at first was to listen and connect with her, like to find some way that she could feel safe with me. And so I did a whole lot of listening, and I was not inserting any of my psychological advice at that point. And it took a lot of sessions with her, and slowly she started to open up to me more and more over time. But it probably took us, I would say it probably took us 8 to 10 visits at least before she was really comfortable with me. Now, at that point, it was very easy for us to talk. It was very easy for her to share things with me. And it was easy because she knew she could trust me. She felt safe with me. Now, she was doing some things in her life that were really self-destructive. In fact, she was putting herself in situations that was creating more trauma for her. And she couldn't see it. And she was very entrenched with this. And it got to the point where I had to say some things to her that were really hard and really difficult and really painful. Now, if I had said those things in our first visit, she would never have come back. I waited until I had enough money in the bank, so to speak. Now, I call this your emotional bank account. But I waited until I had enough money in her emotional bank account that she felt safe with me. And at that point, I was able to say some really difficult things to her. Things that were painful for her to hear, but she hung in there and she stuck with me. The reason that I tell you this story is because if you want to have influence with somebody, if you want to have influence with your kids, you have to first find ways to increase your connection with them. If you don't have a relationship, if you don't have a strong emotional connection or a strong emotional bond, you will not be able to say anything. I want to share with you another story that happened many years ago as well. This was a young boy. I think he was probably 11 or 12 years old at the time. His mom brought him in to see me in therapy, and he absolutely did not want to be there. His problem was that he was just not going to school, he was isolating, and he had become really depressed. Well, the reason he had become depressed is because his father had passed away. And he had just shut down. He had a really close relationship with his father, and he just was not functioning and not dealing well with that grief. So mom brings him into my office, basically forcing him to be there. And he comes in, and when you do therapy with kids, it's hard to sit there and do talk therapy. It's hard. You have to find ways to engage with them. And he would not say a word to me. He was completely shut down. So we just sort of stared at each other. And I remember trying all my tricks. I tried to engage with him and whatnot. Nothing was working. So I met with his mom, and I told her, the next few visits are going to probably seem like a waste of time for you, because I am not going to be doing any therapy with him. I'm going to be trying to find a way to connect with him. I'm going to be trying to find a way to make him feel comfortable with me. Well, just so happens that this boy liked basketball. And coincidentally, right next to my office was this big gymnasium. It had a basketball hoop. I was literally 10 steps from my office to a basketball hoop. So the next time they come, he's coming in grumpy and not wanting to be with me. And I just grab a ball and say, follow me. And so we go in and we were just shooting hoops. And all we did was sort of hang out, shoot hoops, and that's all it was. And I probably spent 3 or 4 sessions like this with him, where I'm just trying to find ways to connect with him. And I'll never forget the moment when it was, I don't remember exactly, 3rd or 4th visit in to see me. We're sitting there playing basketball, and this little boy plops right down on the floor and he's crying. And I go sit by him. And I say to him, tell me what you miss about your dad. And we finally have this real conversation, this real interaction about his dad. Every time after that, we shot some hoops. We always sat down on the floor and we talked about his dad. And I was able to help him learn how to express feelings. And we talked about grief, and we talked about loss. My point in sharing these stories with you is that advice never works. It always backfires, because when we're giving advice, we're coming from a place of superiority. I'm better than you, I'm smarter than you, so I'm going to tell you what to do. If you want to have true influence with your kids, you have to connect with them first. You have to listen to them first. You have to find ways to increase your emotional connection with them. You should always try to catch yourself giving advice and then knock it off. Instead of thinking about advice, I just want you to think about the word influence, because this is all you're trying to do anyways. Just think about ways that you can influence your kids, and it always starts with the relationship first. Remember, connection first. Listening is connection. Advice is disconnection. So the secret back door is simple, and it's just listening and connecting. And once you do that, once you've listened and connected, then you can get away with saying all sorts of things, and you have tremendous influence. Do you feel like you're always at your wit's end when it comes to disciplining your child? Well, you're not alone. Many parents struggle with this every day, but what if there was a better way? What if you could get real connection and influence with your children, no matter how difficult or defiant they were? I have a free ebook that will give you more ideas about influencing your child. This will help you build a better relationship with your child and help them grow into the person you know they can be. Just click the link in the video description below to start changing your family dynamics for the better today. The more you try to control somebody, the less control you have. The less you try to control somebody, the more influence you're likely to have. When you feel like you've tried everything and you still feel disconnected from your child, get creative, meet them where they are, engage in their interests. You'll be surprised how this changes things for your relationship.